Today we're going to talk about the color Burnt Sienna, which is a somewhat transparent color. So let's get started. All right, Burnt Sienna. Well, let's see what it looks like right out of the tube with very small amount of water added to it. It's sort of a warm brown. Here it comes. Okay, and I'm using a number 10 flat brush. So that's what it looks like coming right out of the tube. It's about a mid value. There's some water added to it. You can start to see that it's transparent, a little bit more water added to it. Almost starts to become almost an orange here, and with more water added to it. So there's the range of values that you can get with burnt sienna all on its own, and you can see that through the value finder. Sorry. Anyway, it's really a pretty color. I think of it. I think of it as the collie. I have a collie, and he certainly has that burnt sienna coat to him. Very warm brown. Quite a bit of yellow in it, and because it has a lot of yellow in it, sometimes I use it in a triad. I will use it in a dark triad, and I'll also use it in a lighter triad. So first we're going to look at what happens if you use it in a dark triad. I will often use this dark triad if I'm starting with, let's say, a picture of an animal, like a portrait of a dog, and putting in my darks. So that's the burnt sienna, very small amount of water added to it. And there's alizarin crimson, so the triad is going to be burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, and ultramarine blue. I said alizarin. I always want to say alizarin. I keep saying it wrong. I'm determined to get it right. Alizarin crimson. So you can see what a pretty triad that is. Those colors are all somewhat transparent, and when they are around the same consistency going on a dry piece of paper, they meet and mingle very nicely. So I use that often as a dark triad when I'm putting in darks. Darks meaning a dark shadow, or perhaps the dark coat of an animal. So in other words, we talked about this before. Instead of using one color in order to transfer value information, I like to use three if possible, two or three if possible. And these, as you can see in that square, come together really nicely, and there's a variation among those colors, but the value ends up being one value. Now here it is being used as a triad, but weakened, so it has a lot of water added to it. So the first stroke was ultramarine blue. There's the alizarin crimson going in. Good, I said it right that time. And at the very end of the shadow where things are lighter is where the burnt sienna is. So in using this triad, I'm using what I call a red, a yellow, and a blue, but in this case, my yellow is the burnt sienna. All right, I'm not sure what I'm doing here. Let's see. I must have had a reason for doing this. It's always a reason. Oh, okay. I know what that is. Those end up being the colors that I put underneath that shadow. So there they were washed out. And here are the exact same colors, but used in a thicker consistency. And I use that for the dark square that I made, just so that you could see the differentiation. Boy, that's a hard word to say. All right, so moving on with burnt sienna. You see that it marries very nicely with alizarin crimson. I said it wrong again. Alizarin, that's right, alizarin crimson, and with burnt sienna. Now, if I had to make a Sophie's Choice someday, which I hope I never have to make, and only have two colors, because I've made a video before about what are the three colors I would use if I only could use three. But if I could only use two colors, I would choose burnt sienna and ultramarine blue, and I'm going to demonstrate why that's the case. And you might even consider using burnt sienna and ultramarine blue if you're discovering a no-tan, and I'll talk about a no-tan in later videos. But basically a no-tan is a value study. In order to be able to tell whether a picture is really going to work as a good composition, it needs to have a good underlying no-tan, a good way for all those shapes to come together and not be scattered, but to create forms. That's about the quickest way I can explain it. And in order to do that, you need a balance of lights and darks. Doesn't matter what you're painting, you need a good balance of lights and darks, whether it's a scene or whether it's a portrait, or even if it's an abstract. And what these two colors allow you to do is to be able to explore a range of values from darks to lights just with the two colors. So that's what I'm demonstrating here. I'm only using burnt sienna and ultramarine blue to create this little value sketch. But in a strange way, your mind starts to see it as being color. You kind of make that transition. But first you look to see, does it work as a value study? If it works as a value study, then you can go ahead and insert color for the different values that you have. So I would come back and probably make that barn, instead of the burnt sienna, I probably would make it a, I think it was a red barn. Oh, there it is. It's right there on the bottom left-hand corner. Oh, it's kind of a washed out brown, so I might edit that and make it a brighter red, but it would have to be a dark red because that burnt sienna is coming in as a mid-tone. So that's just a quick demonstration of why, if I could only pick two colors, I would pick burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. And what I've done there on the side, where I made a bunch of dabs there on the right hand side, is there's a variety of colors that I made from just those two colors themselves. But you can make a variety of values using water. And again, I always say don't use water to get there in a real painting, but this was a value study. And by not using water to get there, I mean don't use water to get to the value that you want. I mean, there are times when you have to do it, but the more you can avoid it, the stronger your paintings will be, because if you use water always to get to the value that you want to get to, your painting's going to look really weak and washed out, as if they had been in the wash 20 times, like a pair of jeans that starts out looking bright blue, and then gets that, isn't there even a name for it? I think it's called wash denim. You know what that looks like. All right, so remember to keep the whites of your paper white, your paints wet, mask for value, mix for color, and let me know what the two colors are that you would choose if you had to only choose two colors. Oh, wouldn't that be a terrible day? All right, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye.